Welcome to PE with the Albion Foundation. I'm Mr. Holmes.
I'm Mr. Johnson.
Today we're going to experiment with moving objects in different ways. Your learning objective today is to manipulate equipment and experiment with how you can move it. We're going to start off with a little warm-up. Mr. Johnson, if you wouldn't mind standing in the middle of our orange square. Nice and simple. All we're going to ask you to do is touch as many cones as you can in 30 seconds. We're going to ask you to touch them with your foot instead of your hands. And after each cone, you're going to return to the middle of the square before you touch the next cone. Mr. Johnson, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
On your marks, get set, go! You can touch the cones in any order you want, remembering to touch it with your foot instead of your hands. Always go back to the middle. 10 seconds left. And stop. Right, we're going to repeat this warm-up again, but this time we're going to change our movement. Okay? So now, I want you to choose which movement you're going to use. You can travel backwards, you can travel sideways, you can jump, you can hop, you can skip, whichever way you want, but we're not going to run that. Mr. Johnson, which movement are you going to use?
Backwards.
You're going to go backwards. Okay, so we're going to give you another 30 seconds. Touching with your foot. Now you're travelling backwards. Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay. On your marks, get set, go. Remember, you can choose whichever movement you want. Ten seconds left. And stop. So we're going to ask you to do that one more time. Choose a different movement this time. So if you've been forwards, you might have gone backwards or jumped or hopped or skipped. Whichever movement you chose, I want you to use a different movement next time. One more go, 30 seconds. How many cones can you touch? So for the next part of today's lesson, we're going to move these objects in different ways. You can use any objects you want. What you'll see we've got here that Mr. Johnson's using, he's got a football, a tennis ball and some bean bags. Over there we've got a basketball. You can use whatever objects you have available in your school. Just make sure that you're not sharing objects. So if you can only have one object each, that's absolutely fine, and it doesn't have to be the same. But if I touch an object with my hands, Mr. Johnson can't touch the same object. So remember that and keep them in your own area. You'll also notice that Mr. Johnson has got a yellow channel. I've got my own yellow channel over there, and they're 2 meters apart, and you'll see a red line in the middle so that we know not to go over that line, so that we're also keeping our distance. The challenge now is Mr. Johnson with his equipment. He's going to transfer his equipment from his start point here into this blue target area, which is quite close to him, and he can transfer that equipment in any way he wants. Once he's got all 5 objects, he can go and collect them, bring them back and repeat. Okay? When he's collecting the objects though, Mr. Johnson, what do you think we're going to do?
Travel different ways.
So he's going to travel in some different ways so he can demonstrate running, jogging, backwards, sideways, hopping, skipping, jumping, whatever you want to do when you're traveling to collect that equipment. Show me something creative. Make sense? Should we have a go?
Yep.
So 1 point for every piece of equipment you get into the area. If you miss the area, it's fine. You don't get a point. Okay?
Yep.
Try and experiment with different ways of moving that equipment.
Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Set. Go. points did you get, Mr. Johnson?
1.
I only got 2.
Okay, so to progress the lesson further, we've put the target area a bit further back, okay? What we've got obstacles, okay? We can get sand, okay, volcanoes, and we've got a lake, okay? So the aim now is to get your item into the target area while avoiding the obstacles, okay? This time you get 2 chances to move the object into the target area, okay?
So, Mr. Johnson, what happens if I move one of my pieces of equipment and I hit one of the obstacles?
Have to start again.
We have to start again from the start. Okay, that's fine. And I've got 2 attempts to get it in. So if I move my object and it doesn't quite go in the target area, I can move it one more time. Is that right?
Yeah. So if I go to aim for the target area and I miss it, I can now have a second chance to get it into the target.
Brilliant.
1 point to me. I still move. Don't forget, we're trying to still avoid obstacles and we're trying to get to the target area as well.
So we're going to move in different ways. We've got 2 shots and we're going to try and move the objects in different ways. Yeah? Fantastic. So see how many different ways you can move your items. Let's have a go. Okay, for the next part of the lesson, what we want you to do is change the difficulty of your own course. So what that means is you might move your target further away. If you want to, if you found that really difficult, you might move it a little bit closer. You can also change where your obstacles are, which obstacles you use, and if you want to really push yourself, I want to set you some challenges on how you move that equipment. So, before we carry on, from a distance, talk to your classmates about different ways that they move the object. I'm guessing all of you threw it. What other ways did you use as well as throwing? How can we move those objects? When you've discussed that, make your area more challenging and have another go. Well done, guys. Before we finish today's lesson, we've got a few questions for you to answer.
Can you name 5 different ways that you move the objects?
Can you name 5 different ways that you moved or travelled when collecting the objects?
What was the most challenging part of the lesson?
Why was that the most challenging part of the lesson? Teachers, don't forget, before the end of the lesson, make sure that all the equipment is cleaned that's been touched, in line with your school's cleaning policy.